Welcome back to Narrations. The story begins with a gunshot echoing through a beach house. A man collapses against a balcony railing, whispering a single name before dying. Mildred. But this is not a murder story. Not really. This is a story about a mother who mistook sacrifice for love, and built her entire identity around a daughter who could never be satisfied. This is Mildred Pierce. And it unfolds like a confession. The police interrogation room is stark. Mildred Pierce sits upright, impeccably dressed despite the chaos of the night. Her posture is controlled. Her voice measured. But her eyes carry exhaustion, the kind that accumulates over years, not hours. As she begins recounting her story, the film shifts backward. Before Monte Barragan. Before wealth. Before scandal. There was simply Mildred, a middle-class housewife in Glendale during the Great Depression. She was married to Bert Pierce, a man decent in nature but limited in ambition. He struggled financially. Jobs were scarce. Pride was fragile. Their home was tidy but modest. Bills were constant. But inside that home lived two daughters. Ray, gentle, affectionate, easily content. And Veda. Veda was different from the beginning. Sharp-eyed. Observant. Beautiful in a way that suggested she knew it. Even as a child, she rejected anything that felt ordinary. She disliked hand-me-down dresses. She corrected grammar. She watched wealthier families with fascination. Mildred noticed. And instead of tempering that hunger, she nurtured it. Because Mildred saw in Veda something extraordinary. Something that might escape the limitations she herself had accepted. The marriage to Bert deteriorates quietly. He resents Mildred's growing dissatisfaction. She resents his complacency. When Bert's infidelity surfaces, it becomes the final fracture. They separate. Mildred is left alone with two daughters, and no independent income. The economic reality is brutal. There is no safety net. No inheritance. No generous settlement. For the first time, Mildred confronts something she has never allowed herself to feel fully: fear. But fear transforms quickly into resolve. She can cook exceptionally well. Her pies are famous among neighbors. Her fried chicken draws compliments. So she does what respectable middle-class women of her time rarely did. She seeks employment. The first restaurant she approaches rejects her. She lacks experience. She lies about her skills. They test her. She passes. And so Mildred Pierce becomes a waitress. The uniform humiliates her not because the work is degrading, but because she knows Veda would see it that way. She hides the job at first. But secrets in tight households rarely remain hidden. When Veda discovers the truth, that her mother serves food to strangers, her reaction is volcanic. Not sympathy. Not admiration. Contempt. She calls it shameful. Embarrassing. Beneath them, Mildred absorbs the insults silently. Because in her mind, this is temporary. This is the sacrifice that will launch Veda into a higher life. Mildred works relentlessly. She studies customer behavior. Notices which dishes sell fastest. Observes margins. She understands intuitively that food, comfort, and atmosphere can create profit. Soon she partners with a business investor and opens her own restaurant. It succeeds immediately. Her fried chicken becomes signature. Families line up. Business expands. Within years, she owns multiple establishments. She transforms from waitress to entrepreneur. And yet, she remains emotionally tethered to Veda's approval. Ray's illness and eventual death devastate Mildred, but the film subtly suggests that even grief bends toward Veda. Ray was loving and undemanding. Veda is brilliant and exacting. Veda becomes the axis of Mildred's universe. Private tutors. Music lessons. Expensive clothing. Social elevation. Mildred funds everything without hesitation. But wealth does not soften Veda's sharpness. It intensifies it. As she matures, Veda refines her contempt. She distances herself from her mother's business origins. She lies about family background. She claims her father came from aristocracy. Mildred overhears Veda once denying she has a mother who works in restaurants. The wound lands quietly. But Mildred does not confront it directly. Instead, she doubles down. More money. More prestige. And then Monte Barragan enters. Monte is polished but financially unstable, a former member of old Pasadena society whose wealth has eroded but whose arrogance remains intact. He is charming in a way that feels dangerous. He sees Mildred's money. Veda sees his status. Mildred sees opportunity. If she marries Monte, she believes, Veda will finally have the social elevation she craves. The marriage is not romantic. It is strategic. Monte moves into a world funded by Mildred's labor. He criticizes her business openly. Calls it vulgar. Common. He spends her money while mocking its origins. Mildred tolerates it. Because Veda admires Monte. And that admiration feels like progress. But what Mildred does not see, or refuses to see, is that Veda's hunger is not for comfort. It is for superiority. And superiority rarely coexists with gratitude. Marriage does not soften Monte Barragan. It sharpens him. Now living in a house funded entirely by Mildred's restaurant empire, Monte grows increasingly dismissive of her work. He calls her businesses common. He mocks her customers. He resents that her wealth exceeds his former social standing. But he stays. Because her money sustains his lifestyle. Mildred senses the imbalance, but she tells herself it's temporary. She believes once Veda is fully established, as a refined, admired, talented young woman, everything will stabilize. But Veda is no longer a child seeking opportunity. She is a young woman learning manipulation. The first true fracture comes when Veda entangles herself in scandal. She falsely accuses a wealthy young man of impregnating her, hoping to extract money and force a marriage that would elevate her socially. The lie collapses under scrutiny. It is exposed as blackmail. Mildred is horrified. Not just at the deception, but at the cruelty. For the first time, she sees clearly that Veda's ambition is not innocent. It is ruthless. Mildred slaps her. The gesture shocks them both. Veda responds not with remorse, but with icy detachment. "You're nothing but a waitress," she spits. The word lands like a verdict. Mildred, wounded and furious, sends Veda away, cutting her off financially for the first time. But maternal severance proves impossible. Months pass. Veda returns, humbled only on the surface. She apologizes carefully. Softly. She performs vulnerability convincingly. And Mildred, desperate for reconciliation, forgives her. Because Mildred does not know how to love partially. Meanwhile, Monte's financial situation worsens. He has no independent income. He gambles. He relies more heavily on Mildred's resources. Their marriage grows brittle. And in a twist that feels both inevitable and devastating, Veda begins an affair with Monte. The betrayal is layered and quiet at first, glances that linger too long, private conversations, and intimacy disguised as shared sophistication. Mildred does not see it immediately. Or perhaps she does, and refuses to acknowledge it. When the truth finally surfaces, it shatters everything. Mildred walks into the beach house that night expecting confrontation. Instead, she finds them together. Her husband. Her daughter. The two people for whom she sacrificed everything. The argument that follows is electric with years of repression. Monte taunts her. Veda refuses shame. She declares her superiority openly now, claiming she has always been destined for more than Mildred's modest origins. Monte belittles Mildred's business again, calls it crude. The confrontation escalates. Voices rise. Accusations sharpen. And then the gunshot from the beginning returns to context. Monte collapses. The police investigation frames Mildred initially, the last person seen with him, the financial entanglement, the motive. But the truth emerges slowly. It was Veda. In a moment of emotional extremity, when Monte suggests leaving her, abandoning her socially once again, Veda shoots him. Not out of self-defense. Out of wounded pride. When confronted by authorities, Veda denies responsibility coldly at first. But the evidence corners her. Her composure fractures just enough. Mildred watches this unraveling with a clarity she has never allowed herself before. She sees her daughter not as brilliant, not as misunderstood, but as capable of destruction without remorse. In the final confrontation, Mildred makes the choice she avoided her entire life. She stops protecting Veda. She allows the truth to stand. Veda is arrested. Taken away. The camera lingers on Mildred's face, not in melodramatic collapse, but in hollow realization. She built an empire. She surrendered dignity. She compromised morality. All to create a future for her daughter. And in doing so, she removed every boundary that might have shaped Veda's character. In the final moments, Mildred returns to Bert, her first husband, not as a triumphant entrepreneur or social climber, but as a woman stripped of illusion. The noir shadows remain heavy. But the story closes not with vengeance, but with reckoning. Mildred Pierce is not about murder. It is about the danger of loving without limits. About what happens when sacrifice becomes identity. And about the painful truth that sometimes, giving someone everything means giving them the power to destroy you. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this narration, please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next story.